Well, I think the probably definitive analysis of the effects of the or the causes underlying the sovereign debt crisis is the IMF study on fiscal transparency, which they did, I believe it was in 2013. But it's a very impressive piece of analysis where they have drawn some very strong analyses and concluded that the lack of transparency in public sector financial information was one of the primary causes of the market being ill-informed of the risks that was embodied in the sovereign debt that was being issued by Greece and other countries affected. So clearly, to the extent that it's not obvious that the quality, integrity, comparability, accuracy, and comprehensiveness of financial information is important. I mean, I think to most people that would be a statement that didn't need much analytical proof. But I think the IMF study has confirmed what many people already knew. The question then, of course, is, well, what do you do with that information? The basic problem is that in the private sector, the need for comparability of financial information is widely recognized. The case does not need to be made. And you have an extensive body of international financial reporting standards that people are required to comply with. And in virtually every jurisdiction, if you want capital, for example, your banker or the capital market, the Securities and Exchange Commission, where you want to list, will require that you produce financial information in accordance with acceptable standards. The irony is it's the governments that impose that requirement, but governments themselves are not subject to that discipline. So basically they can do what they like, and they typically do. There's no regulatory mechanism to make sure that they are adopting appropriate standards in the production of their financial information. So the challenge is obviously to try and get governments to do the right thing and use acceptable accounting standards so that reliable financial information is prepared. And given that you don't have a regulator telling government to do that, you have to rely on a government's willingness and sense of obligation to do the right thing. And that will vary very much from country to country. Some countries, they'll accept it and they'll do it. Some countries will accept it but will not give it the appropriate priority. Some countries will perhaps accept it in principle but not be willing to put the resources behind it. And some countries, frankly, would prefer not to do it because transparency and accountability is really only meaningful when the data, on which transparency will be based and accountability will be based, is available. So, without being too cynical about it, obviously there are some governments that would actually prefer not to have that reliable data available because they don't really want to be held accountable for the questions that might arise, once that data is available. In essence, we're trying to communicate the message that this is very important, the benefits of doing so, and the flip side of that, the consequences of not doing so. And we're doing it, for example, through fora like this, where we've had a number of sessions dealing with this issue and talking about international public sector accounting standards, which is a recognized international benchmark for public sector accounting. And we're also working through this campaign, which we call Accountability Now, to try and bring the message to a broader public. Because for accountants, one can make the case, and the case doesn't really need to be made, and the question rapidly moves on to technical issues. And it's vitally important that those technical issues are discussed and aired. But I think it's also vitally important that the public at large, if I can call it that, is made aware of the importance of reliable financial information in the public sector and some of the agents that influence public opinion. Civil society organization, media organizations such as yourself, and also people who have a stake in it, public accounts committees of parliaments, chambers of commerce, people who have a vested interest in ensuring that the macroeconomic stability is maintained. And in order to have the right policies, you've got to have the right data. So the link is very clear. So this campaign is something that we are launching. Our objective is to take this message to both global fora, regional fora, national fora, to try and stimulate discussion and debate, and hopefully hold governments to account for doing the right thing.